Lieutenant Colonel Robert Shuford, Captain John Roberts, First Lieutenant Robert Vachon, and First Lieutenant Brett Lazaroff. And gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for your service.
Semper Fi, the will to fight, the courage to fight, and the will to win. And Marines are saying, totally, we had a soft life. We did. We just did. And if, you know, fortunately we didn't, you know, there wasn't a war where we were called, but when these guys are called, they go. And I'd probably hide somewhere, but anyway.
By the way, each of them have gone several times.
They have been deployed.
When Squawk Box returns, the man who predicted Warren Buffett's involvement in the Occidental Anadarko deal joins us to talk about what Elliott Management's stake in AT&T could mean for the company. Don Bilson of Gordon Haskett joins us in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Squawk Box is sponsored by Franklin Templeton.
LinkedIn Learning offers more than 14,000 online courses to help you achieve your goals. Its short video tutorials cover business, technology, and creative skills employers look for at every level, all taught by real-world industry experts. And new courses are added every week. Plus, LinkedIn Learning is personalized, recommending courses based on your interests and skills. Start your free trial at linkedinlearning.com. Cancel within the first month to avoid any charges.
Oh, I found one of our new Vauxhall Griffin editions.
Yes. What comes as standard?
Standard? Well, alloy wheels, sat-nav, aircon, DAB radio, Bluetooth, smartphone projection and USB connection.
Wow. Is that everything?
Sorry, forgot the colour touchscreen.
Buy a new Griffin edition, Adam, Astra, Corsa or Mocha X Plus and get a whole host of features as standard. The Griffin edition range. All Griffin, no bull. Visit your nearest retailer now. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903. Participating retailers only. Limited units while stocks last.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
With Parliament suspended, what does this mean for Brexit? Will there be a vote of no confidence? A general election? Turbulent times lie ahead, and our team of experts are uniquely placed to give you the inside track. Turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one. That sound.
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Take a look at the futures right now. Looking at all morning, very slim loss. This is actually just about the flat line. The S&P 500 down just 3 points. Dow projected down about 11. The NASDAQ slightly underperforming, down 14 after a virtually flat day yesterday for the major indexes.
New legal action over e-cigarettes as the federal government intensifies its crackdown into the industry. The FDA issuing a warning letter to vaping market leader Juul over the company's claims that its products are a safe alternative to cigarettes. Juul says that it's reviewing the letter and will fully cooperate. In the meantime, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo stepping up his criticism, calling for new legislation to ban flavored e-cigarettes in his state while issuing subpoenas to several companies that market and sell what he calls thickening agents. That's things like vitamin E that have been found in some of these illicit vaping devices that seem to be causing so many problems and that the FDA now believes may be the cause for all of these lung illnesses that we've seen. Investors are feeling the pinch, too. Overnight, analysts at Piper Jaffray downgraded Altria Group, citing, among other factors, increasing regulatory headwinds that are facing vaping products. Altria, as you may recall, owns a 35% stake in Juul. That stock down by just over 0.5%.
All right, coming up, activist Elliott Management taking a big stake in AT&T and challenging the company over its strategy and its board. We'll break down what it means for the telecom giant in just a few minutes. And then our newsmaking interview with Microsoft's Brad Smith. We'll talk government regulation of the tech industry, antitrust issues, and Huawei as well. Squawk Box will be right back.
This CNBC program is sponsored by...
At Romans, you can rent your next home from just £36, plus your first month's rent. No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
With Parliament suspended, what does this mean for Brexit? Will there be a vote of no confidence? A general election? Turbulent times lie ahead, and our team of experts are uniquely placed to give you the inside track. Turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Hedge fund firm Elliott Management taking a stake in AT&T, sending a letter to its board and calling for a restructuring, sending the stock higher in yesterday's trading. Leslie Picker joins us now with more on this activist play. Leslie.
Hey, Mike, that's right. Elliott more often than not gets its way. Shareholders seem to hope that's the case at AT&T. Shares of the media conglomerate gained after the hedge fund published a letter to AT&T's board outlining recommendations to drive the stock price higher. These included a review of AT&T's portfolio, cost structure, capital allocation, and corporate governance. Elliott, which invested $3.2 billion into AT&T, says its proposals could boost the stock price by more than 60% 10% to over $60 a share by 2021. For its part, AT&T said in a statement that it would review Elliott's perspectives, noting that, quote, many of the actions outlined are ones they are already executing today. In its letter, Elliott stopped short of proposing specific director nominees, only to say that it identified several candidates to discuss with AT&T's board. Citing sources close to the hedge fund, CNBC.com reporting that Elliott thinks CEO Randall Stephenson's exit is on the negotiating table. Elliott has been somewhat responsible for several CEO ousters, most recently Athena Health's Jonathan Bush and Arconic's Klaus Kleinfeld. Guys.
Leslie, thank you. Let's expand this conversation. Stick around. Jump in on it, too. We're bringing in right now, though, Don Bilson. He's head of events-driven research at Gordon Haskett. Earlier this year, Don's unconventional research helped him figure out that Berkshire Hathaway's inclusion was going to be part of the Occidental Anadarko deal before anyone else. Also, Frank Louthan, who is telecom analyst at Raymond James. And Don, let's start with you. You say that this was the perfect time for an activist investor to jump in.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a lousy stock for, basically Randall Stephenson's entire tenure. It looks very much like he'll be leaving the company sometime next year. I mean, next year will be his 13th year of being CEO. That's generally kind of your life expectancy. They are going through sort of the succession process as we speak. This would be the time to jump in and shape policy.
That's what I mean. I wonder how much of this was... AT&T said themselves that many of the things that they're being pushed or asked to do by Elliott, they're already in the process of doing. They've already kind of taken this on, and maybe it's the perfect time because the stock has started to pick up. The company is at an inflection point. It's finally able to kind of get on the ground with Time Warner and bring down some of the debt. It seems like it's been on track with many of those issues.
Absolutely, but that's what every activist wants, is a little bit of a tailwind behind you.
The activist wants the work to have already been done so they can jump in and then claim credit?
They want a little of that, and they certainly don't want to be fighting headwinds. So if the model is turning a little bit and you have an opportunity to affect management and to put some of your own people on the board, this is the time to do it.
Frank, you actually upgraded the stock earlier this year. Why'd you do that? What do you see happening?
Well, our thesis then was fairly simple. The stock was beaten down, and we felt there were more things that could go right than with some of its peers, and so it could see some appreciation. And one of the things that we thought was really going to help was the delevering. And so a big part of what Elliott's saying is selling off assets. They're already doing that. They've got $500 billion of assets. They're selling about 2% of them. I think they're going to continue to do that for the next several years and just get some of this stuff off the books. Now, it may not be the big ticket items that Elliott is asking for, but they're definitely looking to do that. And as far as some of the things they want them to sell, it's not as simple as it seems. These are complex businesses, and you do have a lot of benefit from having these assets across the different platforms. Data generation, for one, is really important to generate, both for content creation and then also to be able to monetize that with advertising over time. And it's just going to take some time. And Elliott cites the Time Warner acquisition. They really haven't had that asset to look at until they finally got through with the Justice Department issues earlier this year. So I think you'll get to see some more details, and I do think you're right. Elliott's jumping in with a tailwind, but they've already taken on some of these things. We also think that they're going to use buybacks going forward, and that'll get a lot of investor attention, and all of these things help the share price.
Hey, Don, one of the things when Leslie was giving her report, it kind of caught me off guard that she called AT&T a media conglomerate, and it's true, but we've always called this a telecom company. The company has changed drastically. In terms of what you think they should be holding on to and what they should be changing, what's the right path forward? Do they need to be bigger as all of these other companies? I think of Comcast and a lot of others that have gotten bigger, thinking scale is the way to win. Is that still the case?
Well, I mean, I thought the Time Warner deal didn't make a lot of sense. It's too late to unwind it all. I think they should let go of Turner. I mean, if they can get a multiple for what you paid for Turner or above that, that would be a good opportunity to pay down debt with that. At its heart is a wireless company. It is a telecom. And Randall has come up with this concoction to turn it into something else, and the stock hasn't responded, and that's where we are today.
Oftentimes with these big moves, I mean, Elliott's putting $3.2 billion of capital to work in this thing. They get support from other investors. Have you gotten the sense that Elliott does have support from other big investors that are already in the AT&T stock for its support, for its proposals?
Well, that's the thing. It is so underowned. People don't have big meaty stakes in AT&T. I mean, it's largely owned by retirees and workers. I mean, that's where you have 550,000 retirees. You've got 250,000 workers. That's a big part of the stock. It's like very similar to Procter & Gamble when Nelson Peltz went after that. So the votes get tough to handicap
That's
here.
interesting.
There's not.
Peltz didn't.
I would somewhat disagree with that. I mean, a lot of investors we've talked to have been shifting into AT&T, and we've seen that as the stock's lifted, it was clearly undervalued earlier this year. And I think the Elliott will get some more attention. But what they really have to do is get some of the big, large global fund managers behind them, and with a position that we're not exactly sure how much of it is actual stock ownership versus synthetic. Remains to be seen how that will play out. But I do think you've seen more of an institutional shift into the name, and there is still a pretty sizable ownership from that community.
Frank, aside from deciding what assets get sold and how much of the asset base gets sold, it seems like a capital allocation question strategically, right? So it's allocating. You mentioned buybacks. Elliott seems to not want any more additional M&A, and then dividends. So how do you think the company is now thinking about spreading its capital across those things in terms of shareholder return and new investment? How might that change?
Yeah, I think the shareholder returns are a pretty important focus. I mean, they've made a commitment to paying down the debt. That will make a lot of the bondholders happier to have less outstanding. And once they cross that 2.5 times threshold, which we think is fairly achievable by the end of the year, sometime within there, they can start doing the buybacks as well. The company has bought back stock in the past. I think shrinking that equity base is part of what the story that Elliott is discussing. And the company has raised the dividend for the entire time it's been a public company. I would expect that to continue to be the case. They usually do that towards the end of the year. I don't see any reason from our model. I don't see a reason why they couldn't continue to increase the dividend. And that's a pretty important part of the story. When you look out there for investment with yield, it's very difficult to find. You can't really get in treasuries. And so I think a stock like this that yield investors can count on it's going to continue to be a very attractive part of the story. So I think they're going to be shoring that up.
You know, the yield, 5.5%. I mean, that's a crazy yield when you look across what's been happening. Some people thought that it couldn't continue like that. Obviously, the stock price going up changes that a little bit. Their dividend, I think, has gone up about 1 penny a year. You think their dividend will increase beyond that rate?
It's been up about 2% a year, so give or take. I think that's probably the range that you're looking at. I'm not looking for a massive increase, but I definitely would expect the board would continue to increase it this year and going forward. I don't see why they couldn't.
Frank, thank you for joining us today. Don, it's
good
to see you. And Leslie, we'll see you again in a little bit.
All right, coming up, our Squawk Newsmaker of the morning, Microsoft. President Brad Smith is here. We're going to ask him about big tech regulation, the future of Silicon Valley, and much more. As we head to break, take a look at U.S. equity futures, which have improved throughout the session. We're down 18 now. We'll be right back.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nason and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI Events.
Still to come on Squawk Box, Microsoft President Brad Smith joins us to discuss some of the headlines coming out of the tech industry in his new book. We'll find out why privacy, cybercrime, and social media could pose a threat to democracy. That interview is after a break. And later, a big day for Apple fans. The company is ready to reveal new products. We'll preview what's to come and talk about what it means for investors. We'll also hear from White House trade advisor Peter Navarro at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Squawk Box will be right back.
In the last year, there were 3 victims of cybercrime.
Make sure you're uni-ready with our huge range of practical essentials and home-from-home comforts and get 10% off for a limited time. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Dunelm, the home of homes.
With Parliament suspended, what does this mean for Brexit? Will there be a vote of no confidence? A general election? Turbulent times lie ahead, and our team of experts are uniquely placed to give you the inside track. Turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
People have always told me I can be a bit wary of modern things.
Very true.
So when Jane suggested selling the house with purple bricks, I weren't happy.
No, you weren't.
You see, I don't like technology. I don't like the internet. I don't like moving house. I don't like their adverts. I don't like purple.
Luckily, I don't listen to him, and our estate agent Emma were perfect. She gave us her actual mobile number. She was always available.
Fine, they were great. Still don't like purple.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So go smash this month, next month, and make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays.
Set for Life from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures, and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over. Summer wardrobe weather struggles? Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Convertible wellies never going to happen, is it? But with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more.
First world problem number 346.
Well, you know, people might think I'm exaggerating, but since Virgin Atlantic announced their sale, I can't sleep. 1 minute my head is in New York, the next I'm searching for shows in Vegas. I can't stop. So many choices. South Africa, the Caribbean, California. My search history is a total mess. Oh, I might need to bring it up with my life coach.
Seriously? Get a flight. Bing bong. The Virgin Atlantic sale is now on. Visit virginatlantic.com and fly direct from London.
Finally, Disney's The Lion King. Oh, it's Timon. Timon. Oh, what a meerkat. He's got it all. He can sing. I can sing, Sergey. He can act. Timon's so funny. Hey, I'm funny. He's brilliant. The camera loves him. The camera loves me, too. Yes. Get 2-for-1 cinema tickets to see Disney's The Lion King in cinemas now with Meerkat Movies on the Meerkat app.
Qualifying purchase, Tuesdays or Wednesdays only. Participating cinemas, T's and C's apply.
Attorneys general from around the country are now investigating Google over possible antitrust violations. Elon Mui joins us now with more. Good morning, Elon.
Well, Mike, we knew this was going to be a massive bipartisan effort. Now we know just how sweeping it is. 48 state attorneys general plus D.C. and Puerto Rico banding together for an historic antitrust investigation into Google. And actually, the AG said their probe is already underway, and they've issued requests for documents related to Google's advertising business.
All of our information, everything that we requested so far is related to advertising. If there are other facts that demonstrate that we need to go in another direction, we will talk about it, and we're certainly open to doing that.
Now, other issues the AGs brought up were privacy, search bias, and whether Google is buying up and locking out its competitors. And even the AGs who stressed that they support innovation also said that they fear Google has simply gone too far.
But the question for us today is whether Google has strayed from its founding principles to not do evil in its search and relentless drive to be the market-dominant player.
Now, the AGs were careful to say that this remains a preliminary investigation. Texas is leading the effort, and there will be weekly status calls on how things are going and the next step. But, Becky, this is going to be a long game, and the AGs said that they are committed to their own investigation, regardless of what happens at the federal level. Back over to you.
Elon, thank you very much. For more on the changes facing big tech, let's welcome Microsoft President Brad Smith. Brad's new book is called Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. Brad, thanks for being here. It's great to see you. I want to talk first of all about why you wrote this book. I think of superheroes to some extent where you say with great power comes great responsibility. Is that what kind of brought this on?
That's a big part of it. I think if you look at the issues that you cover every day, it's increasingly tech everywhere. And we thought it was important to make these issues more accessible, to bring them to life so people can understand them better, and to show that there are some paths forward to address them, because I think the world wants the tech sector, and it wants people in government to do more to address these issues.
Do you think this is really an inflection point right now in society?
I think that there is an inflection point. I think it started last year with Cambridge Analytica, and I think we're just seeing it continue to unfold. And what we're really seeing is, the first year of the next decade. This is going to be with us for quite a while.
What are the big issues when you look around and you think, okay, these are some big problems. They need focus, they need attention, and they need some solutions?
In some ways, there's a big part about trust. People want to know whether they can trust tech when it comes to the privacy of their data, the security of their data, how artificial intelligence is really going to work. But there's also a lot of issues that just hit people at home, and they're economic issues. What is AI going to do to my job? What is AI going to do to my community? What does it mean for my kids? What skills are they going to need to learn? What does this mean for rural communities that don't have broadband today? What does this mean for urban cities where we see tech towers being built, but middle-income people being displaced in terms of their housing? If you actually think about the issues we debate every day, they have these technology roots. And we wanted to really capture how technology is impacting all of the other things we talk about every day.
Before we solve the problems for the rest of the tech sector and all of society, why don't we start with what you're doing at Microsoft? How are you thinking about some of these things in-house? Let's just take artificial intelligence. What's one way that you're kind of dealing with some of the potential problems and trying to fix it at Microsoft before it gets out?
We started last year, we set forth 6 ethical principles that we said would guide our development and deployment of AI around issues like bias, accountability, privacy, safety, and the like. We've been advocating ourselves for new laws around facial recognition. We've said we don't want to see a commercial race to the bottom, because that's where you just let this genie out of the bottle, and then we wake up 5 years from now and we find that we're really not comfortable societally with how law enforcement is using facial recognition or how shopping malls are using it.
Or governments.
Exactly.
At large.
Governments around the world. And we recognize there are days when the smartest thing that we can do for the long-term value of our company is turn down a short-term deal. And we've done that in certain cases where, for example, facial recognition would be used in ways that would either cause bias and discrimination against certain groups of people, women, people of color, or governments, especially overseas, where we felt that facial recognition could be deployed in ways that could really unleash mass surveillance. And that's just not a future we want to help create.
Can you be more specific, or is that about as specific as you want to get with some of those?
We shy away from identifying specific customers unless they want to talk as well. We have shared that there was a police department in California. And to me, the interesting aspect of that episode was when we went to them and we said, we don't think it makes sense for us to provide you with facial recognition to do what you want to do. Our first concern was, well, gee, they're just going to go choose from a competitor. Instead, they said, you know what? We are so glad that you said this to us, because you've kept us from making a mistake ourselves, And frankly, they've said, you're the kind of company we want to work with for the long term.
So Microsoft has set out these ethical principles, and you're in communication with customers that you encounter. Should there be a more central kind of rule-setting function? Does somebody have to set industry standards in this regard?
Ultimately, I think the answer is yes. I think we'll need industry standards to address a number of these issues. Ultimately, this is a space where we will need new laws. And I think this will be one of the leading policy issues for the next decade. Where do we want rules in place to govern how computers make decisions? It's clear that people want people to remain in charge. And if we're going to empower computers, we need to know how the computers are going to make decisions.
You know, that U.S. law enforcement agency may have turned around and said, thank you very much. We really appreciate you pointing this out. My guess is there are some overseas governments that when and if you turned them down, would turn to somebody else. Maybe it's a Huawei, maybe it's somebody else, and they say, sure, no problem, we are willing to fill the void. So you can look for someone to set industry standards, but there are always going to be people in the industry, companies in the industry that play outside the rules. You can look for a government to set standards, but unless you have a global set of standards that everybody actually follows and listens to the rules on, you're always going to have somebody else who is taking what you've done and maybe stepping it up or giving it to players you wouldn't like to see it given to.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head of one of the global questions for the next decade. Because even if we can succeed in the United States in developing an approach that we're comfortable with, what will Europe do? What will China do? We want to see us take a high road in terms of creating technology that the world can trust. And at the same time, we don't want to be undercut by foreign competition. So there is a real global strategy that we are pursuing, that the whole industry is going to need to pursue. And I think that connects with many of the other trade issues of the day.
I mean, right. I'm thinking about this with China in particular, when we say that the reason we're here in these trade talks with them is because they don't follow any of the WTO.
There's 1.4 billion people that live in China. If you add up North America, if you add up Western Europe, Japan, the other democracies of the world, you have an even larger group of people. And I think in some ways, in the race for technology, who's going to pick the winner between American firms and Chinese firms? The answer is Europe. The answer is Japan. And I think it's in part our case to be made to them that we need to work together to preserve values that we really feel are timeless. I mean, we're always excited about technology, but we also recognize that technology actually needs to serve timeless values and not simply march on over them.
We just heard from Elon Musk talking about these state attorneys general, 50 of them, who are going after big tech writ large. I have to say, all of the times, every day we talk about this issue, we almost never bring up Microsoft as part of that. And that's kind of hard to imagine when Microsoft used to be the evil empire that regulators were focusing on. You guys have really avoided this. How? What happened? What was the transformation at Microsoft? What's it like being there now, watching this with other companies?
Well, we were the first graduate of the School of Hard Knocks when it came to technology and antitrust. It's easy for people to forget today that in the late 1990s, the year 2000, the U.S. government and 20 state attorneys general were seeking to break up Microsoft. We learned a lot of valuable lessons, and the first thing we do every day is try to remember them. Because one of the lessons we learned is you have to really look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be able to see what other people see and not just what you like to see in yourself. You have to understand the problems that people are raising, which means you have to get out and listen to them. And then you have to be prepared to start solving problems. You have to compromise in order to find a path forward. If you look at the history of antitrust and big tech, which didn't start with Microsoft, it actually started with Standard Oil and the tech of the early 20th century, one of the real lessons is that when these things start, they last a long time. The entire Microsoft set of issues lasted 29 years, which was less time than it took for IBM or AT&T. And so, I think there's a lot of common sense, frankly, in what we took away. Better to figure out how to solve problems than just keep hiring more lawyers to fight them.
Bill Gates himself has said that he thinks that investigation, not only from the state's attorney general, but from the U.S. government, that really caused him to take his eye off the ball in some situations because he had to spend so much time focused on that. Probably the same for the rest of top management there. Do you think that is likely to repeat itself with some of the other big companies today? How difficult is it to be trying to lead in your industry and find all the fast changes that are coming even faster today than they were back then, but also be dealing with such huge questions coming not only from the U.S. government, from the states' attorney generals, from the EU, from all over the place?
If there's one thing that is clear to all of us, it's sort of the laws of physics. Time is finite. Every hour you spend doing one thing, you can't spend that hour doing something else. In those years at Microsoft, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, all of us, we had to spend a lot of hours focused on antitrust issues, depositions, settlement negotiations, the issues of the day. You can't help but wonder what you would have done if you could have had that time back. It's the opportunity cost of time. And I still remember when one of the members of our board of directors said that in the boardroom in the early 2000s. And it's a comment that has always stuck with me. You've got to decide where you're going to spend your time. And when you're in the tech sector, when the world is changing, when the technology is moving so fast, spending it on antitrust issues probably is not where most CEOs or senior leaders would want to allocate their attention.
Once the wheels of the federal and state governments get ramped up and start rolling like this, though, is it too late? Is there anything any of these companies can do to stop the onslaught that is probably coming?
I think that there is a lot of inertia to these things, and I think your question points that out. The answer I would say is it's never too late. And the real question for all of us really is, what are the tech problems that we want to see the world solve? And that's really why we wrote this book. You can talk about economic power and the like, but a lot of what really, I think, weighs on people's minds is what it means for them personally. What does this mean for my data? What does this mean for my security? And I think the more we can work together across the tech sector to address the root issues that weigh on people's minds the most, it's not going to end every issue for every individual company, but it will create a healthier climate. And I think it's a healthier climate not just for the tech sector, but for the entire U.S. economy, because the truth is almost every company is becoming a tech company in part. So when we talk about ethical principles for artificial intelligence, we recognize we need to create these not only for ourselves, we need to get out and share them with our customers. And so when you put it in that broad perspective, then it's like it's not a day too late, but we better not wait until tomorrow.
It's hard to solve the world's problems if you go out of business. So, I mean, you do need to stay profitable. I mean, it's nice to want to help everyone, but that's part of it, right? Well, let's talk about that in a minute because I know it's a really feel good. We're going to go to a break. Let's go to a break. Brad's going to stick around. We're going to continue, and then I want to talk to you about whether I was really compensated for all my personal information. I get a lot of free stuff, but these companies have hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap because of me. Well, not just me, but I mean, did I get my fair share of that?
Good topic. Let's talk.
You're not answering. But let's talk.
We'll come back after the break.
We'll continue our conversation. Let's continue this conversation with Microsoft's Brad Smith. He's got a lot of my money. Anyways, including his thoughts on the administration's handling of Huawei and U.S.-China relations. Squawk Box will be right back.
Interactive Brokers charges 3.63%.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nation, and P-Money. MCing from Harry Pinero and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Welcome back. Microsoft President Brad Smith is our guest this morning. His new book is Tools and Weapons, The Promise and Peril of the Digital Age. And Brad, thanks for joining us for an extended amount of time. So 2 subjects that I wanted to get to. Well, before we get to the privacy, let's just get to what a company's mandate really is. You're lean and hungry, you're new, you want to crush competition. That seems like what you want to do. You want to be so good at what you do that you're not worried about competitors. You're worried about your customers, you're worried about surviving, everything else. Suddenly you get to a point where you're so good at what you do that people start calling you a monopoly when you haven't really employed any monopolistic practices necessarily, because you're hurting competitors. And that happened to Microsoft over in Europe because they got a different idea of how antitrust works. Should we immediately assume that there's something untoward going on with a company just because it has a huge market cap and a dominant position? Or is it exactly what you were trying to do right from the beginning?
I don't think that one should ever equate size in and of itself with
Success,
a potential
size.
with a potential threat or harm. I do think that with power comes responsibility. And the point we make in the book, look, if you create technology that changes the world, you do bear a responsibility to help address the world that you've helped create. And I think specifically to address your question, you want to move fast, but you need some guardrails. The guardrails keep you on the road, knowing what you stand for, knowing what your principles are, knowing what you want to avoid. I believe in the long run, that's what serves companies and the shareholders.
I just
the
don't
best.
see what the companies that are in the crosshairs of the AGs, they have nothing in common other than being really successful and being very large. So how can all of them, how do we suspect all of them of doing things that are or doing things that need guardrails, as you put it?
Look, I'm not here to advocate for antitrust action against others in the tech sector. I am here to advocate for work that we all need to do to address the issues that technology is creating for the world and get at the underlying problems.
But if consumers are not being harmed and in fact they're benefiting, where everything basically is cheaper than it ever has been and it's almost free, how do we know when to worry about emerging competitors being blocked out? I mean, when it's no longer hurting the consumer or the customer, that's who you normally think of, but suddenly you're worried about competitively that new entrants aren't getting in. How do you decide when that's a real issue?
Well, I think that you do what you just suggested. You ask, what's the problem here? Is there a problem that needs to be solved? Are competitors being harmed or blocked by offering their apps on an app store, for example.
Okay.
That's an example
That's
of
a
competitive
specific
harm.
one. But I'd like to harm most competitors if I was starting a business. Wouldn't you?
Well, and that's why antitrust law in the United States and around the world says that you can do that when you're small, but once you have a certain size, a certain position in the marketplace, you don't have that same freedom to maneuver. I do think there's this broader dimension to increasingly antitrust law today, which looks beyond traditional competitive and economic harm. And it does ask, what is the impact of this on data? What is the impact of this on democracy?
Right.
And that's where, the Justice Department is increasingly focusing. And I'm not sure that they're out of touch with the American public when they're asking the broader questions about the implications of technology.
Do you still, you tweeted out some favorable things, you're not part of the Business Roundtable, but you were favorable about some of the new, I don't know what they were. I guess they were guidelines. I guess it wasn't solely virtue signaling, although a lot of it was.
The mission statement.
Yeah.
Mission statement. Was Milton Friedman wrong that enhancing shareholder value kind of trickles down and takes care of a lot of different issues, and you may not necessarily have to specifically say, I'm going to be a good person? I mean, you stay within the law, you satisfy customers, you expand your employee base, shareholders are benefit, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Do you need to say, you need to think about other things? If you don't say that, does shareholder value actually end up hurting someone?
Well, I think the Business Roundtable has really defined the issue correctly for the 21st century.
Why?
Because what they say is focus on customers first.
Right.
Take care of your employees. Be a good steward in your community.
All that would happen from enhancing shareholder value, though.
But I would argue that the opposite is even a better strategy. Take care of customers first, and in the long term, your shareholders are going to do very, very well. Right. And I would almost argue, look at Microsoft. Look at what we've done over the last 5 or 6 years. We've sued the United States government in 2 different administrations when we thought we needed to protect customers.
Right, you get bloated, tech companies get bloated, world enters a slowdown, you fire nobody, you don't tighten your belt, you're not profitable anymore, everybody ends up not having a job, and when you were thinking only about your employees and you're unable to do some of the really tough things to rationalize a business why won't that happen?
Well, I think the point you're making is any good idea taken too far ends up creating problems.
And you think shareholder value and chasing that has been taken too far?
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, look, of course, if you say that we're going to take care of our employees but never restructure the company, we're never going to let anybody go, that's not a sensible,
somebody in
realistic
China is
path
going to eat
for
your
balance.
lunch, or someone somewhere else, and you're going to end up. Okay, let's do the privacy thing. So we were talking. I'm not going to add up the market caps of all the companies that have stolen my data, but I don't.
Or that you've freely given it
to them, and I'm fine. And don't answer this, but am I a sucker? That I've in many ways I am, but I love Google Maps. I take everything. I don't have nothing's that interesting for me, I don't think. But should I have demanded more compensation for all this information that advertisers are getting about me?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is equip people with the knowledge about how much data there is about them, empower them so they can make more decisions. I think, interestingly, maybe even ironically, the leader in empowering people with knowledge about their data is the European Union with its law from 1.5 years ago.
Right.
We're the one company that said we're going to extend those benefits and those rights to all of our customers everywhere in the world because we do think that people have the right to know what data we have about them, regardless of where they live. Will, I think, benefit if the market goes to work, if there are more opportunities for people to use their data in different ways.
The EU did something that's like, what is it, the blind kernel of corn? How does that work? Anyway, so they actually, that's good. Anyway, we're out of time. That went fast, didn't it?
It sure did. Thank you.
You know, I'm thinking I might read your book. I'm not kidding.
I hope you will. We wrote it so that it would be fun to read. That was one of our goals.
The book, again, is Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. Brad Smith is the president of Microsoft, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. When we come back, another big interview right here on Squawk Box. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro will join us right after this break. We'll be right back.
You know that tech stock we talked about?
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
With Parliament suspended, what does this mean for Brexit? Will there be a vote of no confidence? A general election? Turbulent times lie ahead, and our team of experts are uniquely placed to give you the inside track. Turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
What's standing in the way of a trade deal with China? This hour, we ask Squawk newsmaker Peter Navarro, one of the president's top trade advisors.
A tobacco industry whistleblower sounds off on vaping. Former executive turned anti-smoking advocate Jeffrey Wigand will join us live.
And the tech world is focusing on Apple. New iPhones expected to be unveiled within hours. A live report on what they'll mean for Apple's bottom line is coming up. The final hour Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the most powerful city in the world, New York, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC Live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Joe Kernan along with Becky Quick and Mike Santoli. And Andrew is off today. The futures indicated down about 23 on the session. NASDAQ actually showing bigger point losses than the Dow, which would put it obviously a bigger percentage. Those are down 26 and change. S&P indicated down 5.5. Treasuries this morning, I saw where the 10-year was over 1.6 earlier. 165 almost, 159 on the 2-year.
30-year 212.
Yeah, 212.
Rick Santelli's been pointing about 209. We close above that. It could mean the yield lift is going to continue.
All right, so some technical levels to keep an eye on as well. And let's get you caught up on some of the stories that investors are going to be talking about today. SoftBank is urging WeWork to shelve its initial public offering. But sources tell CNBC's Leslie Picker that WeWork at this point is still proceeding with its IPO plans. She says the conversation happening right now is whether SoftBank wants to invest billions more so that WeWork doesn't need to go public. The company's IPO valuation is now expected to be between $15 and $20 billion. That is well below the $47 billion valuation it was given after SoftBank's last investment back in January. A CNBC.com scoop this morning, JP Morgan is rolling out faster payments for merchants. Customers of its WePay platform will have deposits processed into their Chase accounts on the very same day with no fee. That could give an edge to Chase over some of its competitors like Stripe and Square, which take 1 to 2 business days to complete those transactions, or they charge a fee for faster service. And Apple is set to unveil its latest iPhone models and other product updates today. The highly anticipated event in the tech world will take place at Apple's headquarters in California. It all begins at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk much more about what's expected from Apple in just a few minutes.
It is crunch time for Congress to vote on President Trump's signature trade deal. That's the new NAFTA or USMCA. Kayla Tausche joins us now with more on where that stands. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Mike. The White House is still deep in negotiations with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her conference to get their support and space on the floor schedule for a vote. A spokesperson for Pelosi tells CNBC the substance will determine the timing, meaning the more of Democrats' requests make it into the deal, the sooner it will be put for a vote. House Democrats have 4 asks: making sure Mexico is implementing new labor reforms, better enforcement of environmental protections that they say NAFTA overlooked, and ensuring changes for pharma companies won't raise drug prices. House aides say working groups studying these issues are set to meet with Ambassador Lighthizer next week. They are waiting to hear which concessions he's willing and able to make through side letters. 9 months after the 3 countries signed this deal, Mexico is the only of the 3 countries to have ratified it. Elections in Canada next month have held up passage there. The White House is trying to regain some momentum through a day of action today, circulating talking points to surrogates and supporters in 10 topic areas. In Washington, the White House and Republicans say they have the votes. Democrats say the deal isn't there yet. Lighthizer has refrained from starting the countdown clock on the deal until he's sure. Guys, back to you.
All right, Kayla, leave your IFB in. Join us now for more on the battle over the USMCA and the trade fight with China. Let's get to our Squawk newsmaker of the morning, White House trade advisor, Peter Navarro. It's been a while,
Good
Peter.
morning, Joe, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to have you on. You are quite a lightning rod. Did you realize that for the trade policies of President Trump? Whenever anything really hawkish happens or whenever he sounds a tone that causes the market to go down, it's always Navarro's fault. Do you ever waffle on your resolve to stay strong on this, Peter?
What I'm focused on today, Joe, is being a lightning rod for USMCA, and I think what's important to understand, Joe, is that in terms of the volume of the sheer volume of trade that we do with Canada and Mexico, it's over $1 trillion. It's actually almost twice as much as it is with China, and we actually export close to 5 times more product to Mexico and Canada than we do to China. So USMCA really is the big deal. We're hoping to get this thing done within the next 30 to 60 days, and today is going to be an important day talking to the people of America so that they can encourage their representatives to do the people's business when they get back to Washington.
I think that we'll stick with USMCA for a while, but hopefully we'll get to what I actually asked you about earlier. But just talking about USMCA, it's gotten a little bit better in terms of the prospects for the Democrats, I guess, maybe to support this, even though it would give President Trump a victory. That, I don't know, as we get close to the election, whether you better strike while the iron is hot. Do you think the chances have gone up recently with some of the things the Democrats have gotten with the USMCA?
Joe, this is a deal that does and should transcend politics. It's a unique deal because it benefits both farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers. It doesn't pit them against each other. There's broad appetite around the country for this deal. The big thing, the big obstacle really has been the fact that Congress has been in recess, and it's very hard for Ambassador Lighthizer to get the kinds of negotiations he needs to get this over the hump. But that's getting better. The president of the AFL-CIO went down to Mexico to get some assurances on the labor enforcement, and this is a great deal for America, and hopefully the Democrats will do the people's business on this.
Well, you've been in Washington for a while now. I don't know why you'd
it's
leave.
Dog years. 2.5 years is about 20.
Why, and you had to leave. Some of us are leaving a place like this. You left Irvine to go to Washington. That makes no sense.
I miss my Pacific Ocean. Howdy, California out there.
Can you give me an honest handicap of whether this gets done before the end of the year? And you say, politics should be set aside. That's not going to happen. So what is the real? How would you really handicap that this gets done before?
I think this has to get done before the end of the year for precisely
what are the chances
the
it
reasons.
will get done though?
I'm going to give it 100% here because it's so important for this country, and I can't imagine that Nancy Pelosi would not put this on the floor to at least have a vote. I mean, as you know, there's some progressive politics going on. They want to take our cars and our cheeseburgers, our private health insurance, raise our taxes, and then give the money away to illegal immigrants for health care. That's kind of like the far left. But I don't think that's who Nancy Pelosi is, and I think she is going to do the right thing on this and get the job done. And it is unique that all 50 states benefit. Farmers, ranchers, manufacturers are solidly behind this. And again, I go back to what the concept of this is, Joe. It's important to understand this. The centerpiece for me as the director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy is the domestic content rules, which push up domestic content to 75% in the USMCA zone. Right. And then strong labor protections, the $16 an hour standard plus environmental protections, get us a fair share of that manufacturing. So the vision of the USMCA is to transform North America into the manufacturing hub of the world with the U.S. as the center of that universe. Who can not like that? So let's get it done. And I think the next 30 days are going to be critical to that as Congress gets back. They only have so many days on the calendar, though. It's really interesting how little they work, at least back here in Swampland. So, I'm going to be very optimistic about this because it's so important to the country.
Okay, you've made the comment that when talking about China, anything that you don't hear directly from Lighthizer is fake news. But if you tell me something right now, can I assume that it's to the best of your knowledge, it's not fake news? What you're telling me?
So here's the two rules. The Lighthizer rule is that all negotiations take place behind closed doors and there's no leak to the press.
Okay.
The Navarro rule, and I've always wanted to have a rule named after me, is that if you don't hear it from Lighthizer, Kudlow, Mnuchin, Ross, or myself, it's likely to be fake news designed to part a fool from his money. And the problem, Joe, as you know, is it's a lot of mischief creeps into the news cycle to move the markets, and just so many times, as I've seen over the last year and a half, it's just wrong. And so let's be cautious here. For investors, I think, look, play the long game here, see the chessboard.
Okay.
What we're trying to get to.
Where are we? What's the chessboard look like in terms of what was agreed to in April and where the Chinese are right now for when, as far as you know, for how it starts going in October? Have they said, okay, you're right, we did agree to that, we're ready to come back and talk about some of those things? Or are they still way far apart and there's not much hope for getting close?
So you're asking me to violate the Lighthizer rule?
Yes.
All negotiations take place behind closed.
The Navarro rule takes precedence over the Lighthizer rule. Trump's the Lighthizer rule, so to speak. President Trump's
I'm going to, so trust in Trump, trust in Lighthizer. I think what's important here, if we're going to get to a great result, we really have to let the process take its course. They're coming here. Leo He, the top negotiator, is coming to Washington in October, and they'll sit down with Ambassador Lighthizer. And look, we know what the structural issues are. It's what I've called the 7 deadly sins. It's worthwhile to go over them quickly. It's the cyber intrusions into our business networks. It's the forced technology transfer in exchange for market access. The intellectual property theft to the tune of several $100 billion a year. The dumping into our markets the massively subsidized state-owned enterprises, the currency manipulation. And the last one, the seventh one, is very, very important to President Trump. This is the made-in-China fentanyl and other opioids that are coming into this country. They're going to kill over 100 Americans today. They're going to kill over 1,000 a week and over 50,000 a year. And just a couple of weeks ago, the Mexican Navy intercepted 23,000 kilograms of what appears to be fentanyl that was coming from Shanghai on its way to Toledo and beyond. And this is the kind of thing that's unacceptable. So we know what the structural issues are, Joe, but we also want market access there, and we'll have important, frank discussions about that, but that'll be behind closed doors with Ambassador Lighthizer. Okay. We should be optimistic, though, because I think the Chinese really do want a deal. They're getting hammered by the Trump tariffs. They're having to cut their prices, manipulate their currency down into the toilet, really, and they're losing their supply chain. I think, Joe, that's one of the most important things about what's going on here. I mean, they're losing their supply chain faster than you can say Trump tariffs. And I think that's good for the world economy. A more diverse supply chain is more resilient, and some of that's coming home, and that's good for America.
But what is a more powerful force? I read the same article that maybe you're alluding to yesterday about we don't even know the extent of the damage that's being done to China's economy right now because we don't have the real numbers. So it may give the president more leverage in that regard. But we're also told that China can play the long game, and we know that President Xi's not up for election in November of 2020. So what is the more powerful force there? That their economy is worse, doing worse than ours, or that he doesn't have to worry about political concerns like President Trump has to worry?
So I'm not going there. Again, the Lighthizer rule. I think, look, the way I can best talk to folks in your audience today is to step back a little bit and look at all the things that I think are going to drive the macroeconomy. And Joe, you and I used to have talks all the time about what's going to happen in the economy. Here's what I see. I see that can be good. The passage of the USMCA. I see the Fed cutting rates. I see the European Central Bank cutting rates. I think if the Germans engaged in a fiscal stimulus, we'd see 500-point jump on the Dow in one day. That would be great for Europe. It would be great for U.S. exports. It would be great for the world economy. I see China already engaged in significant additional monetary easing, but I think they're going to do a second fiscal stimulus. So I see a lot of things around the world that are going to stimulate the global economy, and these are the things I think investors should be looking at. In the meantime, we need to be patient with the China negotiations, and we need to focus like a laser beam in getting USMCA passed because there's a lot of good things happening. I mean, the Trump economy, let's be clear about this. Let's talk about recession. It's just silly. Trump economy is solid as a rock. We've got 157 million Americans employed. We've got 18 straight months of unemployment rate below 4%. Wages are rising, historically low unemployment rates for blacks, Hispanics, women, the disabled, and veterans. And my favorite, Joe, my favorite statistic in all of this is we've got over 1.5 million prime-age workers off the couches of despair back into the workforce. This is what the dream was when I was helping President Trump campaign back in 2016. To restore this country again to its greatness, and he's done a great job doing that. So let's be optimistic here.
Okay, we'll be optimistic, but there are people that support President Trump. There's plenty, social media you can imagine. There's plenty, the president sees it too. But even the ones that support him sometimes say you've got to at least when Navarro's whispering in your ear, President Trump, about tariffs, you've got to realize that if it causes a slowdown, it could affect your reelection chances. Do you ever worry, since you're a supporter, that if you're too hawkish in this regard and try to accomplish too much with China, that could slow here, and it could impact the president's reelection.
Well, let's talk about my hawkishness or my alleged hawkishness at this point. I mean, as you know, Joe, I published a book back in 2006 called The Coming China Wars. And today that reads like a normal government document. I mean, basically the way I described China 10 years ago was the way I think America perceives China today. There is a broad bipartisan support on Capitol Hill to get tough on China. And the American public, if you look at the polling, understands very clearly that we need to stand up to China's unfair trade. So I'm not understanding this hawkish point of view in terms of the fact that a lot of what I've said is now conventional wisdom. In terms of the Trump tariffs, I think they've been working beautifully. They're defending our steel and aluminum industries against a glut of overcapacity. Those industries are doing very well. President Trump used the Trump tariffs to get Mexico to do something within 2 weeks that nobody got him to do within 20 years on the border. I think that with respect to China, let's be clear about this, Joe. People need to understand this. The tariffs on China are our best defense against China's economic aggression and best insurance policy. This is the important thing, best insurance policy that China will continue to negotiate in good faith. So the Trump tariffs are working beautifully, and so that's okay. How we need to move forward.
Would there still be tariffs on in November of 2020?
I'm not going to speculate about that. Again, rule one, Lighthizer rule, behind closed doors, Joe.
Behind closed
Lighthizer. I know you're trying. I know you're trying to get me there, but look, my view is today is a beautiful day here in Washington to get moving on the USMCA, and there's a lot of great bullish news. And I remember sitting with you the day after the election, telling that we were going to get to 25,000 on the Dow, and you chastised me because you said I was like I should have went to 30. So let's go to 30 today, Joe. Pass USMCA, get a rate cut from the Fed, get German fiscal stimulus, and this global economy is going to boom.
Okay.
Who snuck that in there? Was that Becky?
Becky.
Hey, Becky, you've been so restrained today. And Michael Santoli, how you doing, friend?
All right, Peter. He's so good. All right, Peter Navarro, thank you. We'll be President's probably watching too, but thank you.
I want to be an eagle, not a hawk, okay?
Yeah.
American Eagles.
Yeah, very good. All right, thank you, Peter Navarro. Programming note, don't miss an interview tomorrow with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. That is at 8 a.m. right here on Squawk Box.
When we come back, it is Apple's big day. Successors to the current generation of iPhones expected to be revealed in just a few hours. We have a preview next. And later, former tobacco industry insider Jeffrey Wigand offered
to 25,000 on the Dow, and you chastised me because you said I was like I should have went to 30. So let's go to 30 today, Joe. Pass USMCA, get a rate cut from the Fed, get German fiscal stimulus, and this global economy is going to boom.
Okay.
Who snuck that in there? Was that Becky?
Becky.
Hey, Becky, you've been so restrained today. And Michael Santoli, how you doing, friend?
All right, Peter. He's so good. All right, Peter Navarro, thank you. We'll be President's probably watching too, but thank you.
I want to be an eagle, not a hawk, okay?
Yeah.
American Eagles.
Yeah, very good. All right, thank you, Peter Navarro. Programming note, don't miss an interview tomorrow with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. That is at 8 a.m. right here on Squawk Box.
When we come back, it is Apple's big day. Successors to the current generation of iPhones expected to be revealed in just a few hours. We have a preview next. And later, former tobacco industry insider Jeffrey Wigand offers his thoughts on the vaping business as regulators begin to take a closer look. Stay tuned. You are watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
This CNBC program is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
I like to make my life easy. Romo mode. Good luck with that one. Yes! That's why I wear Skechers slip-ons. They're effortless. Just slip them right on and off. Skechers slip-ons with air-cooled memory foam.
I can shine, I can shine, I can shine. I'ma do what I'm made to do.
Built for excellence. You start from the foundation up. The excellence is reaching dreams and chasing them at the same time.
I have a structured settlement, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
I have an annuity, but I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
Is your credit card debt stressing you out? Take control. A personal loan could help you crush high interest rates and reduce your monthly payments so you can get out of debt faster and save money. Whether you're a credit stud or a credit starter, at Credible.com, we help you find great rates from multiple lenders. In 3 minutes, get actual pre-qualified.
But even as iPhone franchises come under pressure, analysts think Apple has sold about 80 million watches to date, about 50 million AirPods. In fact, if you combine wearables and services, company says that's now approaching the size of a Fortune 50 company. And as for services, it's been 6 months since Apple unveiled those new services. So investors today